Greetings, lords and ladies. My name is For Extraordinaire, and welcome to the first summer teaser for CK3. Now, these summer teasers are just out so that the dev team over at CK3 at least gives us something to think about while they are on vacation, and I'm not too sure how long they are on vacation. I think it's anywhere from 3 weeks to 5 weeks because the Swedes just love their days off. So whatever, just let them enjoy their holiday. I have no problem with that. But at least they are giving us something to chew on. So with that said, let's just jump straight into the mini dev diary, I guess you could call it, and look at some of these traditions. I've already taken a peek at some of them, and I have a few thoughts. So let's just read them one by one and try to break them down. The first one is By the Sword, and this kind of reminds me of the Crusade belief in Civ 6 or in CK2. I think there were even some individual traits for characters that kind of acted similar to this, but it's basically buffing crusades if characters like to go on them, and so there's no limit to the number of kingdom level holy wars that can be declared by any one ruler, so you want to be a kingdom if you go for this perk, and then all casus bellis that require a specific level of devotion require one less. So basically, if you're going to possibly declare war on one of your neighbors, and that might take your piety down or something like that, and you can't really suffer going from dutiful to another like lower level, this basically makes the penalties much less. So that's really nice and kind of ironic that you can basically go to war against your fellow compatriots, and I guess it's still technically by the sword. So whatever. I guess it's somewhat accurate with like the Venetians and the Byzantines. However, all Scanian characters, this is the example culture, they get -1 diplomacy per level of devotion. So that is going to be a bit painful. So if you do want to go ahead and declare war against some of your neighbors, you are going to at least be able to recover some of that diplomacy. And then once you rank up your devotion, you are going to get more martial. So I guess if you're trying to be more internal and focus on developing your realm internally, you're going to get more diplomacy, which can kind of work out in the long run with your new vassals. And then once you start expanding outward, you're going to get more martial and just kind of level up your devotion, because I believe you're getting some more piety once you win these holy wars, and they are going to rank up your devotion. So I think the piety punishment's not too bad, but the different faith opinion might be a bit bad there. Okay, next you have collective lands, and this is actually a very interesting one because you can grant counties to commoners. I'm not sure if this is just culturally specific. I'm pretty sure some of these are. I definitely think Stalwart Defenders and Staunch Traditionalists are going to be a bit specific. However, I'm not too certain. And this is fairly simple, but it seems to allow for some interesting turtle opportunities because you are going to be able to increase your development growth by a whole 20%. That's fairly big, though there is going to be a very significant control growth penalty, so you're going to want to have very good martial in terms of just letting your stewards and whatnot just try to increase the control growth, because that -20% is going to be, it's going to sting a bit. And then you also have increased building construction time, but I assume the development growth might be worth it. I don't experiment around too much with development growth. I'm usually too busy fucking other people's wives in CK3 or being cucked myself, so I usually don't have enough time to do shenanigans like giving out land to peasants and experimenting with them, but sounds like an interesting mechanic, and I might as well check it out. All right, Isolationist is next, and this kind of reminds me of like the Japanese stance. I think in the 1600s all the way to like the late 1800s until like General Perry came around. But you have the Isolationist, and you are basically it's kind of similar to the play style in that like collective lands, and that it's going to incentivize turtling, but you are not going to want to expand as rapidly. It's going to be focusing towards internal growth, very reduce cultural acceptance gain by -35%, so it's going to be a lot harder to assimilate hybrid cultures and hybridize, if I'm reading this correctly. And then the example culture is getting -25 diplo range, so schemes and just diplomacy in general is going to be a lot harder. And then on the plus side, you're getting a lot more control, so you can focus towards kind of collecting your realm together unless you want to go to war later. And then you have increased culture opinion, so there are definitely some pros and cons, but it seems like this is for regions kind of like Lithuania and the Baltic, and maybe trying to think collective cultures, maybe like possibly Britain or the British Isles, where you have this basically isolated culture group. You have possibly an isolated culture like or a religion like insular Christianity or insular Catholicism, and you don't want anyone else interfering, and you can kind of just develop your own lands. And possibly collective lands might kind of bode well with this, because it also kind of counteracts the control growth. So that could be fairly interesting, though. Minus 20% control growth is pretty punishing. So you might want to pick something up like Isolationist if you are going for a turtling play style. Okay, we have 3 more left, and the first of these 3 is Mystical Ancestors. Fairly simple compared to some of the previous ones in the implications with their play style. This one is more focused towards like primogeniture. So if you have something like primogeniture, and I do not recommend this play style if I'm reading this correctly, if you have something like Gavelkind, you cannot disinherit dynasty members, and you can gain renown when granting titles to house members, and you lose piety when revoking titles from house members. So if you have something like primogeniture, this is going to be really, really useful, because you're already going to be giving land to some of your like sons that are second in line and third in line. So you're going to get some increased renown, which is going to be very, very useful for growing smaller dynasties. And I mean, once you have primogeniture, you should probably be pretty high up in the kingdom rank. But I mean, still, it's going to be useful for some of those kingdom level traits with renown and whatnot. And then also very useful for the plus 10 dynasty opinion. It doesn't help, it doesn't hurt to have that on the side. Okay, Stalwart Defenders are next, and they are kind of like this guerrilla warfare buff. I think CK2 had something similar added with Holy Fury, but you get plus 10 defensive war peace acceptance. Very interesting there. It's going to be a lot easier to defend. You get prestige from winning defensive wars. You get gold from winning defensive wars. Plus 100%. That is pretty good, depending on who you're fighting against. So the bigger, the better. And then you get a plus 5 defender advantage, and then 25% garrison size. So this seems just like straight buffs. I don't know if there's going to be any downsides, but I guess once you're a pretty large empire, you're not going to really want this. But I mean, once you're starting out as a count or a duke, like I bring this up all the time, but I think Lithuania is a really good example for this one too, just because of their terrain, forest and tundra and taiga, all of that wonderful, those wonderful terrain features for the defenders. And then you also have just tons of rivers, and you're going to be attacked all the time, especially on later starts like 1066, possibly encroached by Poland and all those different Catholic countries. And I think they're vitalist, but anyhow. Very, very interesting start location, especially for this game for the next expansion. It seems to be shaping up to be. It's very, very interesting. I'll definitely keep Stalwart Defenders on the back of my list and just see if we can play around with it whenever the Royal Court releases. Anyhow, the last cultural teaser is Staunch Traditionalists. The stubborn trait is more common, which is definitely a negative trait, so you have to watch out for that. You get increased by 300% a convert to local culture decision cost. So this is kind of similar to Isolationist, and that is going to be a lot harder to assimilate cultures. And then creating a hybrid culture requires 100% more cultural acceptance, and that is very, very hard to hybridize with these cultures. And then, oh, lo and behold, they're talking about the Estonians. So apparently they had the same idea with these interesting Baltic starts. But controlled territory defender advantage is plus 5, control growth is plus 0.3 per month, and then cultural fascination is minus 10%. So there you go. All of these cultures are fairly interesting. I think they picked some good ones to show off some of the new mechanics and whatnot, and just touch on the different, are these 6 actually? Yeah, there are 6. I misread it. I thought it was 5. But just very, very interesting mechanics they're introducing. And I think this will be a fairly diverse expansion in terms of what it introduces. But if you guys like the video, this has been 4 Extraordinaire. And join me later for the next summer teaser number 2 next Tuesday. If you like the video, leave a like and subscribe. And I hope you guys see me later. All right. Peace.